My first 90 days in Singapore, the honest version and not the glossy brochure one, held a few surprises nobody ever warned me about, and I want to walk you through every single one of them today. But before I get into all of it, it would really mean a lot if you'd subscribe to the channel and leave a like. It genuinely helps us out over here. All right, let me pour myself a coffee and take you back 4 years ago to the day I stepped off that plane. I still remember it like it was last week. The cabin door swung open, and before I'd even reached the jetway, the air just wrapped around me. Warm, humid, heavy, like somebody had draped a wet towel over my shoulders. And after all those long, gray Ohio winters, all those months of scraping ice off the windshield, I actually laughed out loud right there in the doorway. Out loud. A grown man in his 60s, grinning like a kid. I knew, right then, I'd made the right call. But here's the thing. Those first 3 months were not all warm air and grinning. There were 3 things that caught me completely off guard. 3 surprises. And I'm going to take them one at a time, nice and easy, the way I honestly wish somebody had done for me before I ever got on that plane. Let's start with the first one. The paperwork. Now, I'll be straight with you, because that's the whole point today. I came over here assuming there'd be some kind of retirement visa waiting for me. You know, the way a lot of folks picture it. You save up, you hit a certain age, you fly over, you sign a form, and there's your golden years permit. That was the picture in my head. Well, there is no classic retirement visa in Singapore. None. And I did not know that going in. I can hear what some of you are thinking right now, because I thought it too. Is the visa side really as scary as it sounds? No, it isn't. And let me show you exactly why. When I sat down and actually looked at how it works, it turned out to be a lot calmer than that first panic made it feel. The way most retirees end up staying here long-term is through a family tie, on something called a long-term visit pass. If you've got a child or a close family member settled here, that opens the door. And if that's not your situation, there are other well-planned routes people take, ways of setting things up before you ever arrive so that staying long-term is on solid ground. I won't pretend every path is identical, but there is a path, more than one. And if you've ever wondered whether they even let a retiree stay long-term over here at all, stay right with me, because this is the part that surprised me the most. The surprise wasn't that it was hard. The surprise was that it wasn't. Once I stopped treating it like this looming wall and instead just sat down at the kitchen table one afternoon with a cup of coffee and mapped the whole thing out, it shrank down to what it really was. A small assignment. A one-time job. Something you do once, carefully, and then it's behind you. That's the shift I want you to make in your own head. Don't picture a hurdle. Picture a checklist. You gather your documents. You figure out which route fits your life. You lay it all out clean, in order, no rushing. And here's the beautiful part that nobody mentions when they're busy scaring you. Once that first pass is sorted, the renewals down the road are simple. They don't reset the whole ordeal every time. It gets easier, not harder. I didn't figure all this out on my own, mind you. Let me tell you about Carol. Carol is a lady who'd been living here about 10 years by the time I met her, and she took me to breakfast in Tiong Bahru during those first shaky weeks. If you don't know Tiong Bahru, picture these low, curved, old Art Deco buildings, quiet streets, little coffee shops tucked into the corners. We sat down over kaya toast and 2 cups of that strong local coffee, and I must have looked worried because she just reached over, patted my hand, and said, "Honey, do your homework up front, and the renewals later run smooth as anything. Do your homework up front. That was it. That was the whole secret. And you know what? She was right. Every bit of it. The afternoon I finally spread all my papers across the table and stopped guessing, stopped worrying, and just worked through it step by step. The whole fog lifted. When I renewed later on, it was exactly like Carol promised. A calm morning, a cup of coffee. Done. No drama. No sweat trickling down my back. So that's surprise number one. The paperwork. The thing I was most afraid of before I came turned out to be the thing I worried about the least once I understood it. There's no classic retirement visa, sure, but there's a real doable way in, and it's a one-time task you handle once and set down. I wish I could tell you the other two surprises were just as easy to shrug off. And in the end, they were. But I didn't know that yet, sitting in that quiet new apartment those first few weeks. Because once the papers were filed and I could finally breathe, I walked out that door to actually start living, to buy groceries, to find a place of my own. And that's where the second surprise was waiting for me. And then there was the money. And that one, folks, hit different. And then there was the money. My first grocery run, and my first real look at rent for a little place near Holland Village. I won't lie to you, the Singapore dollars added up faster than I expected. Let me set the scene. I'd just come off the plane a week or so before, still a little dizzy from the warm, humid air and the whole idea that I actually lived here now. So I walked into a supermarket, filled a basket the way I would have back in Ohio, and stood at the register watching the total climb. A little block of cheese, some imported cereal, a few things that reminded me of home. That receipt was a gentle little wake-up call. And rent? A friendly agent walked me through a bright little unit near Holland Village. Leafy streets, cafes on the corner, apartment blocks tucked in among the green. Beautiful spot. Then she told me the monthly number, and I'll admit, I did that quiet nod people do when they're trying not to look surprised. So let me ask you the thing you're probably already asking yourself. How much do you really need to live well here? Let me put the honest numbers on the table. This is the honest version, remember, not the brochure. Here's the truth of it. Singapore is not a cheap city on the surface. Some things, imported groceries, alcohol, a nice apartment in a central spot, will cost you more than you're used to. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. But the total picture, the one I live in every day now, is far kinder than that first supermarket receipt made it look. Because most of the sticker shock comes from trying to live here like you lived back home. The moment I stopped doing that, the numbers changed. Take the car. Now this one really got me. Back in Ohio, a car was just a fact of life. So naturally, I started poking around, thinking I'd buy something modest to get around. And that's when a fellow at a coffee shop explained the COE to me, the Certificate of Entitlement. Before you even buy the car itself, you buy the right to own one for 10 years, and that certificate alone can run you the price of a whole house back in the States. I set my coffee down, and I just laughed. Because right then, sitting there, I let that dream go. And I want you to hear me clearly. I've never once regretted it, not for a single day. Because instead, I let the MRT carry me around. And oh, those trains. Cool, quiet, air-conditioned, sliding into the station right on time, every time. I'd step out of that thick tropical warmth into a train car that felt like a breath of fresh air, glide across the city for a couple of dollars, and step out wherever I needed to be. No parking, no repairs, no insurance headaches, Just a clean, calm ride while somebody else did the driving. That's not a sacrifice, folks. That's a gift. And then I found the hawker centers. If you take one thing from all my rambling today, let it be this. A hawker center is a big open-air food court where local cooks, some of them at the same stall for 30 years, make the best food you'll ever eat. I sat down at one and had a plate of Hainanese chicken rice, tender, fragrant, the little bowl of soup on the side, for just a few Singapore dollars. A few. I ate like a king for the price of a fancy coffee back home. That plate did more to settle my nerves about money than any spreadsheet ever could. And slowly, all of it fell into a rhythm. That's the word I keep coming back to. A rhythm. If the cost of living is the thing that worries you most, take a breath, because here's how it actually settles down. The MRT instead of a car. The hawker center instead of a pricey restaurant. Local produce instead of the imported stuff. Little smart choices made once that quietly add up in your favor. By the end of my 3rd month, I'd stopped bracing myself. I remember sitting right out here on the porch, coffee in hand, opening my power and water bill for the month. And instead of that little wince I used to get, I actually smiled. It was reasonable. It made sense. I understood it. That's the whole thing right there. Once the costs become a rhythm, you understand. The fear just drains right out of them. Now, if you'd rather not guess at any of this, I made something simple to help, and I'll keep it quick. When I was going through those first months, I kept wishing somebody had just handed me the steps, plain and in order. So I put together a little ebook. It lays out the long-term stay route the clean way, because there's no classic retirement visa here, and that trips a lot of folks up. And it walks through the settling in details, the stuff I had to learn the slow way. There's also a simple pack of the retiree forms with a bit of filing help, so you're not squinting at paperwork wondering which box goes where. No pressure at all. It's just sitting there if it saves you a headache. And that's all I'll say about it. Back to the story. Because here's what I want you to sit with. Both of those big surprises, the paperwork and the money, I could see coming, at least a little. They were the kind of thing you expect when you move to the other side of the world. A form to fill out. A budget to figure out. Real, but manageable. A small assignment each, done once. But the thing that caught me off guard the most wasn't the money, and it wasn't the paperwork. It was the quiet. Those first few weeks, alone in a new apartment on the far side of the world, I felt a loneliness I hadn't planned for. Nobody had warned me about that one. Not the agent, not the guidebooks, not a single soul. And that, my friends, is the part of the story I really need to tell you, honestly. The quiet. That's what really caught me off guard. Those first few weeks, sitting alone in a new apartment on the far side of the world, I felt a loneliness I hadn't planned for. And I want to be honest with you about that, because it's real. But it passes. Nobody puts that in the brochure. They'll tell you about the food and the palm trees and the shiny trains. They won't tell you about the evening when the sun goes down over a skyline you don't know yet, and the apartment is bare, and you realize you don't have a single person to call for supper. I sat by the window one of those first nights, coffee going cold in my hand, and I thought, well, what have you gone and done, old man? If you're quietly worried about being lonely so far from home, I want you to hear this part especially, because I know that fear. It kept me up more than the paperwork ever did. The paperwork you can map out on a page. The quiet, you can't. It just sits with you. So let me tell you how it lifted. Because it did lift, and faster than I ever expected. Here's the thing I learned. The loneliness doesn't disappear because you decide to be brave. It goes away because of people, real people, at a real table who pull out a chair and tell you to sit down. That's the whole secret. There's no trick to it beyond letting folks in when they offer. Have you ever wondered whether you'd find your people out here? Let me tell you exactly how it happened for me. It was my third week. I'd started nodding to a couple in my building, an American couple, Ray and Diane, both a little older than me, out here going on 6 years. One morning, Diane caught me in the lobby, saw the look on my face, I guess, and just said, "Come have supper with us Friday. We're eating out by the East Coast with some of our neighbors. Bring nothing but yourself." And Friday, I went. I almost didn't. That's the honest version, not the brochure. I stood in my doorway for a good minute talking myself into it. But I went. Out by the East Coast, there's a long table under the trees, right near the water. The sea breeze was coming in off the strait, soft and warm, carrying the smell of somebody's grill and the salt off the sea. Ray and Diane were there, and their local neighbors, a big, easy group of them, Singaporean families who'd known this stretch of shoreline their whole lives. There must have been a dozen dishes down the middle of that table. Chili crab, satay off the skewer, rice, greens, things I couldn't even name yet. And every one of them, plate after plate, got past my way with a smile. "Try this." "No, try this one first." I remember an older Singaporean gentleman across from me, filling my bowl before I could reach for it, telling me the story of how the whole area used to look 30 years back. Diane laughing at something Ray said for the 100th time. The lights coming up along the shore. Kids running down toward the sand. And somewhere in the middle of all that, passing a plate to my left and taking one from my right, it hit me. I wasn't a visitor anymore. Nobody at that table was treating me like one. I was just a fella who'd shown up for supper. That was the night the far side of the world stopped being far. That's the part I wish somebody had promised me before I got on the plane. The expat community out here, folks like Ray and Diane, they've been through the exact quiet you're afraid of, and they remember it. They watch out for the new arrivals. And the locals, the Singaporean families, they'll surprise you with a kindness that 4 years on still catches me off guard. You are not landing alone. I promise you that. So where did I land after 90 days? Let me lay it out plain, the way I've been laying everything out. The paperwork, the whole business with there being no classic retirement visa, staying long-term through a family tie on the long-term visit pass, or one of the well-planned alternatives. That turned out to be a one-time task. Done once, mapped out clean, and now the renewals go by over a cup of coffee. Just like Carol told me they would. The money, the sticker shock, the Singapore dollars that added up so fast at first, that became a rhythm I understood. I gave up the car once I saw the COE, and I never missed it. The MRT carries me around cool and quiet. The hawker centers feed me like a king for a few dollars. I read my power and water bill at the end of the month now with a little smile instead of a wince. And the loneliness. The quiet that caught me off guard the most. The thing nobody warned me about. That turned into a community I now call home. That's the honest verdict. 90 days took me from a man alone at a dark window to a man with a standing seat at a supper table by the sea. That's what nobody tells you. Every single hurdle of those first 3 months, once I understood it, once I met it the calm and prepared way, it settled into something good. The paperwork settled, the costs settled, and the quiet settled into people. If any of this sounds like where you are right now, come along with me. I'll keep sharing the honest version, week after week, not the glossy one, the real one, from this porch. And listen, I know it's a big step. I know how it feels to look at the whole thing from your kitchen back home and think it's too much. But with a little preparation, it is absolutely doable. I'm living proof, and I'm no braver than you are. I think about that first day sometimes, the door of the plane opening and that warm, humid air wrapping around me like a wet towel after all those gray Ohio winters. I laughed out loud right there on the jet bridge. I didn't know yet about the quiet that was coming, or the supper by the East Coast, or how good 90 days later would feel. If I'd known, I'd have walked in even lighter. So take your time. Don't stress yourself out. Do your homework up front. Let the good people find you and come into this new chapter with a little excitement. I'll be right here on the porch, coffee in hand, when you're ready. And I really do hope you come.